Hi and welcome to the video. In this video I'm going to extend a logical volume on my Linux server that I've got here. So basically that just means I initially had a 40 gigabyte hard drive on here. I've upgraded it through the control panel to 80 gigabytes, but on the server itself it's still only going to show as 40. So I'm going to show you how to actually go in there and extend that volume. So a couple of things to note. I've obviously increased the SSD size on this server, and I've also taken a snapshot before I do any work, and I've also just restarted it after adding that extra SSD space just to be safe. So it's probably worth just doing all of that. And like I say, make sure you got full backups before you do this. It's a pretty straightforward process. The only real danger is that you accidentally delete the wrong volume, the wrong on the drive. That's really the only danger. So as long as you're careful, there's not really too much to worry about here, but obviously it's always worth backing up before you do anything like this, just to be extra safe. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is actually log into my server. Now this is a CloudNX server. I'm in the CloudNX panel, and this also applies to virtual servers as well. It doesn't apply to an actual physical server, so a bare metal. That would be a different process. So the other thing is I'm just going to follow the fasthost guide on here because it literally tells you exactly what to do. The reason for this video as a bit of a complementary thing to this guide is just we do get quite a few support calls on here. It's kind of scary if you're not massively comfortable with Linux, but it is literally a case of just following this guide. So I'm going to go through, I'll tell you what to watch out for. And so let's get started. So I'm going to be using PuTTY here just to connect to my server. So I've got the connection details next to me. Server IP is just that server IP there. That brings up the connection there. So I'm logging in as root on this one. And the password, you can show it there. I've just got it off screen here. And there we go, we are logged in. So let's start here. So there's a couple of warnings on here. Again, instructions don't apply to dedicated or bare metal. The content of the article is information only and beyond the scope of our support because it's an unmanaged server, so we don't normally typically go too much into this. But if you do get stuck at any point, you can try our support. If they're able to help, they will. And again, this article only covers the increasing the size of the LVM when extending a current drive. It doesn't cover the increasing the size of an LVM onto a second drive. So like I say, in this video, I've got one primary, I've got my drive, and I'm going to extend it from 40 gigabytes up to the 80 gigabytes. Yeah, anything more than that is beyond this video. So if you want to add it as a second drive or anything like that, we're not doing that in this video here. So the first thing we're just going to have a quick do is df -h, and that's just going to list all this here. So that's all the current storage space, and we're going to see one of them being the primary drive, which is typically this one here, just where it shows the root there, and we can see that's currently 38 gig, and initially it was 40 gig. Remember, I've increased it from 40 to 80, so we know that's probably the primary drive, but we can check all of that going forward. So we're going to take a note of the LVM name you're extended. So again, that's this one here you're extending, so that's that one here. It doesn't really matter, you can always scroll back up and come or rerun that command if you need to anyway, so don't worry too much about that. So the first thing we need to do is determine what type of file system structure is in place using fdisk -l. So let's do that. And it helps if we put space in. So here we can see in my command here, let's just try and make that a little bit bigger. So there we go. So we've run that command, and as we can see in the screenshot in the guide, I've got the same thing here. So I've got /dev SDA1 and SDA2. So SDA is the drive, and then 1 and 2 are the partitions. So on SDA2, we can see that's the partition that I want to be extending here. And the reason I know that is because that's my Linux LVM. So that's what you're looking for, the one that's Linux LVM. That's the drive we want to be extending. If there is any reference here to gparted or parted, let's just show you the error quickly there. So that would be the warning you'd see here. If you got this warning when you typed in that command, you can follow this part of the guide. Doesn't normally happen. It's normally for very old servers, so I'm not going to go through it in this video, but it's worth noting that you might see that. Okay, so let's just get back up here. So we know what drive we're starting. One thing that is important here is when we make a note of this start here, but again, we can always scroll back up and see it there. So next up, so we know we're doing SDA here. So regardless of 1 and 2, we're extending SDA. Okay, and we know it's number 2. Okay, so again, it might be different for you, don't forget. So make a note of whichever one says LVM. For me, it's SDA 2, and that is important. Okay, so now we need to modify the parameters of this drive. So we're doing dev/SDA, ignore the 1 and 2. So we're going to do fdisk, and then for me it's the same as it is in the guide at this point, but again, it's this bit here, dev/SDA. All right, now we're in fdisk. And if you do want to check you're in the right drive, if you have got multiple drives, you can just press P at any time here, and you can see that we are working on SDA. Okay, so we know we're working on the right drive. So first things first, and this is when it can potentially sound scary, but don't worry about it. Just D and enter to choose. That's a command to delete, but then this is where you really need to be careful now. So I'm deleting 2. That's the drive I'm working on. And again, we're going to just check that guide. We're just going to go with 2. Partition 2 has been deleted. Again, don't panic. We've always got backups if anything goes wrong. So now what we're going to do is type N to add a partition. And we want to choose this as the primary. So we're going to use P and enter. And again, I'm literally just walking through this guide. Okay, so there's nothing too scary here. So there we are. So type the same partition number that we just deleted. So we're working on 2 for me. So I'm going with 2. Okay. And again, still nice and straightforward. So now we're specifying the first sector here. So if we go back up well, we don't have to go up too far. We can see it here. We can see that the start, again, you're just seeing that's the set there. So we're going to go with that. So 1050.624. Yeah, double check it, make sure we're right. And then enter. And then the last sector, we want it to use all the available disks. So all we're going to do is press enter at this point. Now, this is quite handy. We're seeing a signature here. So if you're asked if you want to remove the signature, no, we do not want to remove the signature. So we're going to put N and enter there. Okay, now we're going to change the partition type by typing T and enter. And again, remember we're working on 2. So I'm working on 2, you might not be. Make sure it's whatever you've been working on previously. It's going to be what you go with there. Now, when prompted for a hex code, we're going to go with 8E, which is the Linux LVM. So 8E, enter. Okay, we're looking good. So now we're going to confirm the change is correct. So we're going to put P, enter. So now what we'll be looking for at this point, if we just check this, so start and end, we want the end to be different as it was up here. So if we scroll way back up here, just to here. So previously, before I did any of this, you could see the end block there. And if we just go down here, we can see that has now increased fairly significantly. That is what we want to be looking at there. So we can see that that has worked. So now we're going to exit and we're going to write the change. So this is making the change actually live on the server. So we are just going to use W. Right, partition has been altered and it's syncing the disks. Fine for me, that was pretty much instant, which is fine. Sometimes that can take just a little bit of time. So you may get a warning at that point. If you do get that warning, you're going to have to do a restart on the server. It's just there's a problem with the writing. You can see on the guide there what you'd need to do. So we're just going to check that that's actually taken effect now. So we're back live on our server. We're not within disk. So there we go. And we can see running that now the end has increased as it had before we made those changes live. So that's fine. Perfect. Pretty much done now. So now we need to go down and extend the volume. So let's go down to the next section. Okay, so all we've done there, by the way, is just literally it's an anchor. So I've just scrolled down to extending the volume part of the same guide. So step one, make sure the partition is currently currently a listed physical volume with PVP display. So we're just going to run PV display, and as we can see here, we've got the 39 gig there, which is fine. So, and we're going to make sure it's physical. Yep, there we go. So we can see it there. Perfect. Okay, extend the physical volume with PV resize, and it's the partition again. So the partition I'd been working on. So PV resize. Now remember, I'm working on /dev/SDA2, so we do need to put the partition in at this point, which we didn't need to do earlier, but this time we do. So okay. Right. Okay. So that's what we would expect them to see at this point. So now we need to view the current logical volumes with LV display again. And we should get a couple here. Yeah. Okay. So what we need to be looking at here is we've got two things here. So basically, we want to take a note of the logical volume path of the logical volume we're extending. So I am extending this one here, the LV path of dev CentOS/root. And I know this is the one I'm resizing because it's the one you can see the logical volume size there. This one up here is not the one I want to be working with. Okay, so again, just make sure you're going to be working on the right one, and I'm going to be working on root here. It will look very similar to mine, whatever you're working on, I suspect. So we're going to extend this logical volume to use all this nice new space that I've added to my server now. So we're going to go with LV extend, make sure we're typing it right, LV extend -L plus 100% free, and then the logical volume is this bit here for me. So remember, this is the one I can see, this is the one I'm working on. And that's the path I'm going to use now. Okay, so all right, let's go. So that is basically resizing now. So let's have a look at the next step. So this is the next bit. This next bit is when it's going to actually start doing the resize. So we want to make sure that we don't interrupt it. So XFS GrowFS, and then the logical volume again. So dev CentOS root. Okay, again, this is for what I'm working with, but that's going to be the path that you saw there. Okay, so let's go. So now we don't want to interrupt that. It's real quick for me. I'm dealing with very small amounts of data. There's not much on this server. So that pretty much did it pretty quickly. What you might have found is it got stuck on that little bit there. And then you'd have had to have waited for the logical volume resize. But you don't want to interrupt that. It can take a lot longer than you just saw there. So one thing that's worth noting there is that I might have got an error. There's two potential commands we might have had to have run there. I used XFS GrowFS. If I'd got an error there, it wouldn't have mattered, but I might have got an error when I was working on an Ubuntu server to run through this. I did get an error. I just had to use this command instead. So I would have just used resize. If I'd got an error at that point, I would have used resize 2FS, and then again the same that logical volume, so it would have been the dev CentOS root that I did use. So like I say, don't worry if you did get an error there. Not too much of an issue. Just make sure you just use that one instead. Typically, it shouldn't. Typically, it will normally be XFS or OFS if you're working on a CloudNX or virtual. But like I say, I've run into the needing to use the other command on a CloudNX server. So it's neither here nor there. If you do run that one and you get an error, it's not going to cause a problem. Cool. All right. Well, we're done. So let's just see if I've managed to do it successfully. So df minus h, and what we should be seeing now is, yep, perfect. So that's the one I've been working on, and we can see it's increased to 78 gig, thankfully. Hopefully that video was helpful. Again, if you've got stuck anywhere, you're probably not watching at this point anyway, but do contact our support. They should be able to at least point you in the right direction, even if they can't necessarily help you. But that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye for now.